I'm just going to give you a kind of 30-second summary of what the bill does, and then I'll try to elaborate a little bit, but not too much. Basically, what it does is gives the FTC new authority, and I would disagree with the ranking member because it is new, to address gas price gouging, wholesale and retail. Basically, the president would declare an energy emergency, and that would make it unlawful to increase gas and home energy fuel prices in an excessive or exploitative manner. And the FTC does not have the authority to do that. This energy emergency would have to be declared, in which case the FTC would have this additional authority. Now, let me just say, Mr. Chairman, we had a hearing in the Energy and Commerce Committee about a month ago, and it's quite clear that big oil is ripping off the American people. They're taking advantage of the instability caused by Russia's unjust war in Ukraine and our ongoing economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic to rake in record profits. And meanwhile, everyday Americans are struggling to afford the cost of filling up their tanks to get to work and drop their kids off to school. And I believe it's time for Congress to take what I consider bold action, I do think this is significant, to protect consumers and put an end to this profiteering. Now, I mentioned the hearing last month. We had the leaders of 6 oil companies, and we asked them, we took a hard look, if you will, at their business practices and the industry's role in rising gas prices. And what we found was alarming. They are purposely keeping production low in order to keep prices and their profits high. And the result is they're making a fortune. In 2021, Shell brought in over $19 billion in profits, an 8-year high. And so far this year, they've already hit another record high with over $9 billion in profits in just the first quarter. The industry's been very clear about what's driving these record profits. They're not saying anything differently. On a shareholder call earlier this year, the CEO of Shell bragged that because of the war in Ukraine, the company was enjoying, and I'm quoting, better performance, and yes, indeed, our shareholders will benefit from that as well. And it's not just one company. We're seeing these trends across the market. ExxonMobil increased profits to $5.4 billion in the first quarter of the year, despite halting its operations in Russia. BP's quarterly profit reached $6.2 billion, its highest in more than a decade, with their CEO calling the company a, quote, cash machine. And while these companies are making record profits, they're refusing to increase production. I keep saying increased production is the answer here, but they're not doing it. They're intentionally keeping supply artificially low and prices at the pump high instead of a traditional supply and demand economic model, which is what you would think would happen in a capitalist society, where we'd expect to see these companies ramping up production to meet rising demand. They're instead using their profits to buy back stock to further increase executive and shareholder profits, and they're ensuring the rich get richer at everyone else's expense. Now, I've heard Mr. Cullen, I'm sure I'm going to hear others on the Republican side say that somehow government regulation is at fault for rising prices. Well, we didn't hear that at the hearing. Actually, I have some statistics here that says that only 6% of oil companies surveyed in a recent survey indicated that government regulations are impeding oil production. The oil and gas industry has more than 9,000 approved but unused drilling permits because they don't want to ramp up production. The fossil fuel industry also controls over 26 million acres of U.S. public lands, but 53% is not being used to produce oil and gas. And if the numbers don't speak for themselves, the big oil executives are telling us exactly why they're suppressing supply. When asked in a recent survey why they're restraining growth despite high oil prices, nearly 60% of executives said that pressure to maintain capital discipline is the primary reason that they're not increasing production. So, Mr. Chairman, the problem is not government regulation. I'm going to keep saying it throughout this hearing. The problem is big oil is keeping supply artificially low so prices and profits stay high. Now, I think that when the market is broken, that's when Congress has to step in to protect American consumers, and that's what this bill does. It empowers the FTC to go after the gougers and empowers the agency to effectively monitor and report on market manipulation. So I'm not going to get into it. I've already told you, my sort of capsule summary about what the bill does. But I did want to say the legislation would direct collective penalties to a consumer relief trust fund, which can be used for the low-income home energy assistance program, LIHEAP, and the weatherization assistance program to further lower costs for consumers. It also empowers states to go after price gougers, and it tries to protect independently owned gas stations and shield them from taking the blame for price gouging at the wholesale level or increased costs throughout the supply chain. Now, the last thing I wanted to say is We have a manager's amendment that incorporates provisions championed by Senate Commerce Chairwoman Maria Cantwell. And these provisions are intended to strengthen government oversight of the fuel markets and enhance the FTC's authority to go after market manipulators. So this is different than the original bill. And that amendment bolsters FTC's authority to crack down on fuel market manipulation and doubles the maximum penalty for manipulation wholesale oil markets. It also includes provisions that would improve market transparency and competition by directing the Energy Information Administration to collect and publish information related to the quantity and pricing of transportation fuels. So let me just say, we cannot allow big oil to continue to rip off the American people. This bill will make a difference, and I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to be heard on it. But you're going to hear me over and over again say, this is not government regulation that is the problem. It's the opposite. They're gouging. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.